Okay. Good morning, Mr. Adi. My name is Aldrich Jeremiah. I'm from Class B in Statistics. And in this video, I will be discussing about how to analyze data or statistics using this application called Smart-PLS. For this instance, I will be using Smart-PLS 3. Okay. And this video should cover first is how to import data from Microsoft Excel into the Smart PLS. And then we will continue on building the model for the calculation. And then we'll be conducting all the tests required and discussing how to interpret the data that are given to us. Okay, before we continue, I've prepared all the variables needed, which is first the independent, we have neuroticism and conscientiousness. The mediation is financial self-efficacy, and the dependent is financial attitude. Okay, moving on to the calculation itself. First, we make a new project, which is can be whatever you want for the name. For me, it would be ALP Aldrich. Now we just need to double click on this part here to import data, and we have the Excel file. Now, before we move on, just make sure that your Excel file is CSV, which is comma separated value, instead of the usual Excel workbook. So make sure to convert the file first. Just open this, name it whatever you want, and we have the indicators. We have the descriptive statistics and the indicator correlations. We can move on to building the model itself just by clicking this button over here. Now, just input the indicator that you have prepared. For me, it is the N, or neuroticism, conscientiousness, and then we have financial self-efficacy for the mediation. Lastly, we have the financial attitude for dependent. Okay, I'm just going to move this to the top. Okay, now this looks complete, but you need to first connect it using this button over here, or Alt 3. Just first, we have the indirect, which is from independent to the mediation, and then mediation to dependent. And then for the direct effect, we have the independent to dependent. And to make the analysis easier, we can rename the variables. So first one is N for neuroticism, and then the second one is C for conscientiousness. And latent variable 3 is FS for financial self-efficacy, and then the last one is FA for financial attitude. Okay, now this is complete. Before we continue though, the indicators here are reflective. So instead of formative, that means one of the calculations that is the outer collinearity, we don't need to use that one. How do we know this? Well, as you can see at the data model here in one of the indicators, uh, instead of the indicators making the variable, it's the variable making the indicators. Now we can continue on to the calculations. We'll be using 3: PLS algorithm, bootstrapping, and blindfolding. PLS algorithm bootstrapping will be for the outer model, while the bootstrapping and blindfolding will be for the inner model. First, we can go ahead to PLS algorithm. Okay, for the basic settings, we can just use the default. We can start calculations. Now we can see the path coefficients, but we'll be looking on the auto loadings or the indicator loading. So as you can see, we have a couple that are not valid: C1, FA5, 6, 7, 10, and FS1 to 3. Because this is invalid, we cannot continue, and therefore we need to go on to the model and delete the ones that are invalid. C1, FS1, 2, 3, and then FA5, 6, 7, and 10. Delete. We can do the calculation again, see if it's valid. It looks like C3 is not valid. That means we need to go back to the model and delete. Calculate again. Now, because it's all valid, as you can see, we can move on to the reliability and validity. Okay, we can just go back to the matrix and see that there are 4 indicators that we can use. First one is Cronbach alpha, row, and composite reliability. This one has to be above 0.7. As you can see, it's all valid over here, and the AVE has to be less than 0.5. Oh, sorry, more than 0.5. More equals. As you can see, it's all also valid. Now we can move on to the discriminant validity. This we have 3 ways to check, but we're going to use the preferred method, which is the HTMT, or heterotrait monotrait ratio. And for this one, we need to make sure that every indicator here is less than 0.9 or equals to 0.9. As you can see, they're all valid. Now we can go ahead and move on to the inner model. In this way, we can go ahead and move on to the culinary statistics. Because we don't need the outer, we can go ahead and go to inner values. And for the inner VIF, it has to be less than 5.0. As you can see, they're all valid over here. Moving on, we can go ahead back to the model, start calculation for the bootstrapping. Default settings, start calculations. Now these are the path coefficients, all the path coefficients. And in this one, we have the direct effect, which is from CFA and then NFA. As you can see, CFA, which is conscientiousness, is significant with a positive weak correlation. And for the neuroticism is not significant, so we don't need to look at the correlation values. Okay, and because the mediation and independent variable is significant, that means there are possibilities that the indirect effects are both significant. But we don't need to use Sobel test. We can just go ahead and go to specific indirect effects. As you can see, conscientiousness is insignificant, not significant, while neuroticism is significant. And because of that, we can continue on to the coefficient of determination, which is the R square. We can go ahead and go back to PLS algorithm, go to R square. Now, R square here means that these indicators can be explained or, explained by the indirect or independent variables, which is the R square here. Well, for the R square adjusted is for the percentage that can be explained by the significant independent variables. So in this one is 13.8 for FA, 23.5 for financial self-efficacy. The R square adjusted is 11.3% and 22% for financial self-efficacy. That's it. And then we can move on to the effect size or F square. So this makes sure that if you delete one indicator, that the others won't be significantly affected. So in this case, 0.2 is a large effect, F square, and for the rest is the biggest 0.7, 0.6. That would be in the medium one along with the others, except, yeah. And then we can go ahead to the last calculation or test, which is the Q square. You can find it on model, calculation, and then blindfolding. Just leave it to the basic settings. Start calculations, and then we go ahead to the construct, cross-validated redundancy. And we can find it here. Okay, we just need to find for the Q squared, which is this one, and it's 0.06 and 0.141. And this one, that means the predictive relevance for FA can be considered small, while for the FS is also considered small, but it is still good because it is more than 0. Okay, so that's it for the calculations and the interpretation of the data. Now moving on to the conclusion, which is whether independent variable and affects the dependent variable. And we can see from the bootstrapping path coefficients here is that conscientiousness does affect the dependent, which is financial attitude, with a positive and weak correlation. However, the other one, which is neuroticism, does not affect the dependent variable. And for the conclusion of whether each mediation can mediate the relationship, then we can go ahead to the total specific indirect effects. And this one, conscientiousness or financial self-efficacy does not mediate with between conscientiousness and financial attitude. So you can say that it has no mediation because while the direct effect is significant, the indirect effect is insignificant. And for neuroticism is while the direct effect is not significant, FS to FA is significant. And as you can see in the p-values over the specific indirect effects, it is significant. So it does mediate between neuroticism and financial attitude, albeit with a negative and very weak correlation, which is this one. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, Mr. Adi. Hopefully this video is considered to your liking. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching.